Welcome to Watch and Learn. I'm Christina Whitney, a studio educator here at Handi Quilter, and with me I have
Kim Sandberg.
Today we have listened to what you have asked, and we're going to talk about using rulers, but we're also going to talk about using rulers on stationary machines versus frame-mounted machines. So Kim, you're on our Capri.
Yes, yes.
Let's first of all talk about a little bit of the difference between the two types of machines and what equipment we need.
We need for versus the Capri stationary machine, meaning a machine that you move the fabric instead of moving the machine. That's what we mean by stationary. Well, I think the biggest difference is for this machine, I don't need a ruler base, but you do.
Yes. So for the frame mounted, you need to have a ruler base so that you have an extended table. Whereas the stationary machine is actually already in a table, so you don't need the ruler base.
Exactly. I've got lots of table space. Yep. It's not a problem. The next thing that I definitely need, and depending on the type of quilting you're doing with a frame-mounted machine, you don't always use is the Handi grip.
Correct.
Because I'm using the ruler and moving it along with my fabric, having that Handi grip to give us a little extra grip on there, to be able to move everything together at one time.
Yes, it's a little bit different motion than on the frame mounted where just the machine is moving and you're just holding the ruler.
You're holding that ruler in place, and depending on the type of thing. I also find that using machine gers, I've been a stationary machine quilter for years and years and years. Started on my domestic machine, and I found that wearing the gloves is like key to me to be able to move the fabric easily with less fatigue on my hands. And with rulers, it's really great because it does give you that extra layer of just being able to grip that ruler, move everything easily and smoothly. So there's that.
Going back to that, I've also heard a lot of people say that with the stationary machines, they like to use the paddles or the sweet spots. And I think you've got some in your secret little drawer right there.
I do, my secret drawer. I have them here, and I know actually that is very true. I've had people tell me that they like to set these on top of their rulers because they've got a little bit of heft to them. They've got a little bit of weight to them. They really help you hold that ruler in place. And depending on if you have any kind of issues with your hands too, with gripping things, I know I have a little bit of carpal tunnel, and so my hands get tired. Using something like this is just an extra tool to help you do it.
Yep. And you can take that knob off if you want to use your whole hand on there.
Have it be flat.
Yep.
Absolutely.
To do things.
Yeah, there's lots of great things. The other thing that I always recommend is the Surefoot. And that's the same for you.
Yep, I've got the Surefoot on my machine right now.
We absolutely love using the Surefoot. It's that extra high profile on the bottom that just keeps things safe. So
it protects that ruler from hopping over and getting in between the needle and the hopping foot. And
exactly. Any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, always recommend that. So Handi grip, my gloves, my Surefoot, that's pretty much what I need. And for you on the frame-mounted machine, so on the Amara, what are you using? You're using
the same things we just talked about. I've got the Surefoot, I've got my ruler base, and then depending on what I am doing with the ruler, if I want the ruler to be able to move, I don't put the Handi grip on it. If I want it to stay stationary, I do put the Handi grip on it.
And I think you actually have a ruler that you're going to be using today where you'll be kind of be showing that difference. Is that right? Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should get to quilting. What do you think?
Yes. So let's tell our audience about our little kind of challenge that we have here.
Yes.
So we were given three rulers. One was a set of 3, but then the set plus 2 more. And we were giving a block.
Right.
And our challenge was to fill that block using those rulers. So should we show them the finished product first and then show them how we did it?
Yes.
And I'm going to stick my ruler base back on while I'm...
And I have to tell you, I'm so bad. I realized I didn't use one of the rulers. So you've got me beat.
I win by default.
She wins. We kind of thought this could be a little bit of a quilt off between the two machines, but we wanted to show that you can use any of our rulers on both types of machines, both ways to quilt. So, all right, so here's our finished squares. So, okay, this is kind of our first time of really seeing it. This is kind of fun to see. I
like yours.
Yeah, I like yours too. That's very fun. So let's be honest. These were some blocks I had in the bottom of my drawer that were finished, that were left over from
other projects.
A project a couple years ago. And we decided to quilt them and just come up with something fun. And the 3 rulers we have are the Arc B set. You have, you have the whole set there.
So there's 3
There's
rulers.
3 of them. And then we have the mini circle set, which has all these different sizes of circles in it, which is really great. And then the last one, which you used and I didn't, is the line grid.
Line grid is the 1/2 inch line grid.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I tried to figure out a way how to do that in here, and
you could do something in the center, maybe.
I thought about doing something in the center. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to add it in. What, you have any ideas?
I'm just going to stop right now before I get carried away.
We were talking yesterday about not quilting them to death. So you can see that I left a nice amount of space not quilted in mine. So I used the Arc B out here. I used actually the straight side of the mini circles ruler for all the straight edge quilting, including the stitch in the ditch that I did here. And then I used the 3/4 inch circle of the mini circles in mine.
So you used the largest of the arc set, is that right?
Yeah. Yep, and the outside of it. Yep.
Well, that is perfect because I used the 2 middle sizes.
That's perfect. We actually used all the rulers.
Yes.
That's great.
Okay, so I have these triangles here where the base is a different height or length than the others. So if I were to use the same ruler, I would have gotten a different depth in there.
Right.
So what I did is on the short side, I used the smaller ruler to do my continuous curve.
Okay.
And then I switched to the bigger one to do the long side. So that was fun. Let's see. And I did that same thing throughout the red parts here and also in the white here.
Fine.
And then on the white on the outside, I used the line grid and just did 1/2 inch increments.
That looks really
using
cool.
that. And then I got really wild and crazy.
And you used all of them.
I used all of the circle sizes. Yep, they're all in there in the middle.
I had actually thought of filling mine in the center with that, but then I didn't. So, you know. Anyway,
I'm glad you want to show them different styles.
Yeah. Actually, I'm glad that would have actually been kind of funny if we both ended up with the same little there in the center. But well, okay, so I think we just want to do some stitching.
Yeah, let's do some stitching. Show them how you hold the rulers, any little tips that we might have. Do you want to go first or me?
Sure. I can absolutely do it. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to glove up here. I really do find, though, with stationary machine quilting, for me, the gloves, it was like the key. It was a game changer. Absolutely. It allowed me to be able to quilt all day long without my hands getting really tired. So right here, and you guys can see here, I'm working on this outside, just this nice curve all the way. I wanted to create some movement, so you guys can kind of see here, around the outside edge of my star. So I did these at these a little bit of a different angle all the way through. So I just line up the edge of the ruler with my stitch line, which means I'll be stitching 1/4 inch away. And you'll notice that I've got some handy grip at both ends of my ruler. And I put my hand nice and flat on top of that. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and just move it nice and easy across the quilt. The most important thing to remember when you're quilting on a stationary is keeping the edge of this ruler in contact with the foot. And it does take a little bit of practice. So, and I'm just moved over, just kind of eyeballing it right there along my seam, 1/4 inch, and then I'm gonna line my ruler up again. Now, one of the things to note about these arcs, and I'm sure you probably, well, you didn't use the whole arc, but these arcs, depending on kind of where you're quilting on it, the curve can change a little because it's broader through the middle and a little flatter out towards the sides, or a little closer towards the sides actually is what it does. So if I was to flip and start quilting like this, it's going to change my angle a little bit. So I'm trying to keep it pretty much going through the middle the whole time. So we'll just do that, and I'll just quilt back and forth. Now, one of the advantages to quilting on a stationary machine is that if I want to, I can turn my fabric in any direction. I'm not locked in like Kristina is on the Amara.
Yes, you'll see
So,
some contortionist work
yes.
over here in a minute.
You don't have to do the contortionist, so to speak. And every once in a while, I'll actually catch myself doing that. Here, I'll just do one more of these. And then we'll let Kristina show you some of her stitching. But that's basically how I just did those back and forth. Every once in a while, I'll catch myself holding it a little funny. And when I do, I remind myself, wait, I can turn my fabric anyway so that I can keep stitching the pattern that I have. So that's the basics of doing something as simple as this, just following the outside edge of the ruler. One of the things I want to note is keeping the edge of that surefoot close to the ruler is really important, and it takes a little bit of practice. Kristina has this great saying, oh, I just went out for ice cream, which means that she just kind of veered off the edge. So like I said,
never.
We all do it. It's always a really good idea to like get out a little something and practice with a ruler before you start stitching. That's what I like to do. So, yep. All right, so why don't you show us some of the basics of what you're doing? Which ruler are you going to start with first?
I'm going to start with the same set.
Okay.
And I'm going to point out a couple of things. First of all, I have this frame mounted machine loaded in clear view. So I don't have my topping fabric over the top because it's just already stitched on.
Right.
But if people are wondering why that bar is not in the way, it's because I have it in clear view, which makes it really nice because I have all of this space to work here.
Yep.
One other thing that I also want to mention with these arc rulers is that you've got this inside arc as well.
Right.
And you can use that by, lift up your needle. You can lift up your hopping foot and slide the ruler underneath to get to the inside of the ruler.
Very nice.
Okay, so for this one, I'm just going to show kind of my stitch path.
Okay.
Because I wanted this to be continuous.
Right.
So doing the same thing that you did, I've lined my ruler up so the center is lined up. And I'm
you're using the etch marks, right? To have that center. Nice.
Yep. And I'm making sure that the end point where I'm aiming for is 1/4 of an inch away from the ruler.
Right. Very important.
Okay. So I'm going to stitch along here. I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to switch to my other ruler. Okay. And I don't know if you guys can see, but I am reaching behind cameras.
The contortionist segment has begun.
Okay, so I've done the two sides, and rather than doing this third side, I'm going to continue to do two sides all the way around so that it can be continuous. And then when I get back to this point, then I can do that inside part.
Hey, are you enjoying watching me and Kristina battle it out with the rulers on the two different machines? Well, if you are, we have a special for you this week. Select rulers are 15% off, good through Sunday. For more information, contact your local Handi Quilter retailer or go to handiquilter.com. Smart, very smart.
So thinking ahead of what you're going to do can save you a lot of time in the long run.
Oh, absolutely.
So again, just hugging along there. Okay, what happens if I'm missing my end point? Like I've aimed wrong. Can I move my ruler?
Absolutely.
Novel idea. I just advise doing it gradually and not a big huge jump.
Right.
Okay, let's put this other one on here. And I've got many layers on this. I think I've got 2 layers of batting and backing and 2 tops. So using that surefoot really, really is helping so that this ruler doesn't pop over the top.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm going to stitch around there. So you kind of get the gist of how you have to change your hand positioning as you're moving around. The ruler sometimes is behind the foot, sometimes in front of the foot, sometimes to the left, sometimes to the right. And you've got to be able to hold it in all of those different positions.
Right. Yeah, definitely a little bit different than quilting on a stationary machine.
Yep. So I would continue that all the way around and then come back and do the third side of each of those triangles.
On the inside. Very cool. Very cool. And you're using like basically the same thread color throughout while you're stitching right now. I think we both kind of did it and started we did it originally switching thread color, but
Yeah, so my original block I did red on red and white on white. This one, rather than taking time to change thread, I left the white on so that you could actually even see it just a little bit better
yeah.
for camera.
One thing though, okay, you just mentioned thread. Let's take a minute and talk about, both of us, when we were looking for thread colors, we actually found spools of thread in the back.
Yep.
So we both have the horizontal spool pin mounted on our machines, and we're just stitching with a spool of thread. So that's another thing to note, you know, you don't have to use a cone all the time on these big machines. Mm-hmm. So horizontal spool pin.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well,
okay.
Are you where you can just switch to another ruler, or should I jump in with some of mine for circles?
If you're ready for circles,
Okay.
you can go ahead and do circles.
Well, actually what I need to do first is I've got this little echo that I did here around the outside. Let me bring this in here so you guys can see. So I did this 1/4 inch echo right in here that I need to do first. And then I did circles, these little circles all the way around the outside. So this is one of the things that I love about a versatile ruler like this, the mini circles, is that I do have a straight edge on here. So I don't have to grab another ruler to start using just for straight edge work. So let me go ahead and I'll get this started. Just do that there. And I'll go ahead, I'm lining up the edge of my surefoot with the edge of my fabric here. And then I've got my ruler out here to the side just to help guide me. And I'm gonna stitch down until I come to this seam right here. And then I'll turn my fabric.
So jealous.
And I know, be able to keep things lined up. A little bit of a different perspective. And just lining up that foot there. I'll go ahead and do this around here real quick.
So Kim, here's a question for you.
Okay.
If you were doing a big, huge quilt and you were doing this, and it's kind of bulky to be flipping it around all the time, can you use the ruler in different positions?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You want to show us on the diagonal?
Sure, why not? Okay, so if I did not have the ability to flip this one, I would actually line it up right here, and then I can just move it right like this.
Fabulous.
It's just a matter of, and I can even do this one that way. Let's see, get that there. It's just doing whatever is most comfortable for you at that point with that seam that you're working on, that stitch line, quilting line that you're working on there. Okay, let me move those out of the way. So now I'm going to go ahead and start on my circles. So I just did the circles right here next to this line. So I need to get inside of this, the circle right here. So I just need to lift my foot up. So I'll just touch the screen, and then I can just slide right through that slot and put it right in place. Now, I don't want to do a circle right here because I'm not going to get the whole circle in there. So what I'm going to do is just very carefully do a little bit of stitching, follow that line down until I can get it lined up about where I think I'll be able to do a circle without hitting. Now, this is where our quilter's eye for our 1/4 inch comes in handy, right, Kristina?
Oh, yeah.
I look at this and see that, make sure that those seams, those extra seams there on the inside are about that 1/4 inch away. And then I can go ahead and do my circle. Now there's one thing with circles you got to remember. If you want to make them continuous and connect them, you're going to have to stitch all the way around and then do some backtracking and stitch a little bit more again. So I went all the way around on that one and came back and stitched that one. And now to keep to easily keep the bottom of the circle so that it's hitting the stitch mark right here at the bottom, if I line up the very bottom edge of this ruler with my seam out here that is a 1/4 inch away from that seam right there, I know that everything's lined up perfectly.
Excellent.
So I'll do a couple more circles. And the trick with getting good circles, I have found, I don't know about you, Kristina, but slow and steady tends to win the race for a nice round circle. You don't want to speed up on circles. your ruler might shift a little or something. So
and this is one ruler where I definitely want to have handy grip.
yes, yes.
So it's not shifting.
And it's a good sized ruler. So you can see there, I had a little out for ice cream right there, but that's easily fixed.
That was a kitty cone.
That's a kitty cone. That's
a banana split.
A Sharpie, a little Sharpie right there would help me. But what I would do is I would just continue doing these circles all the way down. And then when I get to a corner like this, just shift and just keep that edge right along this seam right there. And just keep doing these circles. And on my original one, Kristina talked about moving the ruler a little. You'll notice that I have a couple of circles here that maybe overlap a little bit more than you would technically. It doesn't make them absolutely perfect, but it made them fit in the space. So for me, eyeballing it and not having to get out my calculator and do math to see how those three-quarter inch circles are going to fit is priceless. So just make it work, right?
Yeah, and if you had a shape where it's going to overlap no matter what you do, do it on all four sides, make it a design element.
Exactly. So that's me using the mini circles ruler. Okay. So what ruler did you do next? Are you going to do the mini circles too?
Yes. We'll just keep things in order here.
Awesome.
Okay, again, to get it through the slot, you have to have your needle in the up position.
Right.
And like Kim mentioned before, she didn't start right down in the corner because she didn't want the circle to stitch out of her face there.
Right.
So I've got mine lined up here, and I don't have that echo line that you have.
Right.
So I am looking at my seam line between the red and the white.
Okay.
And I am placing my ruler on both sides about 1/4 of an inch off the edge. And again, I'm just eyeballing it.
Right.
So if I get too close, I might have to wiggle the ruler just a little bit. But yeah, just doing the best I can. And I'm not going to be a perfectionist with this. It's going to be fun. So I'm just going to stitch around. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but I just went smoothly around where that slot was.
Very good.
So the slot's not so big that it's going to chunk.
Right.
Is that a good word?
Right. Well, it doesn't. I know that I've had people comment, "Oh, I'm going to end up with a little divot right there." No, you won't. You won't.
And you get used to it also.
Yep.
Okay. So same thing with Kim. I'm going to travel a little bit over the line that I already did to get to where I want to start my next circle. So I'm going to move it up here. And I'm just going to eyeball here, lifting up my needle. I'm going to take this off.
Oh, because you're going to switch circle size.
And I'm going to switch to a different size.
Cool.
I'm going to immediately put my needle back in position, and then I'm going to hug the ruler up against my foot, and then look for my 1/4 of an inch on this side.
Okay.
And then pressure on the ruler, on the foot, and on the handles. I'm going to stitch around. And I'm going to stop there, lift my needle. Which size should I do next?
Do the smallest one.
The smallest one. Oh, the little baby one.
Yeah, the little baby one.
Okay, my needle is back down. Position the ruler. And this is where clear view really comes in handy because my ruler's not getting stuck on this extra bar up here. It's fabulous. Okay, so my 1/4 inch eyeball was off a little bit on that one. Actually, all of them were a little bit off, but does it really matter?
No.
No.
Absolutely not.
Nobody's going to say, oh, she intended to touch the line and she didn't touch the line. It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay. So it actually looks like I made a little snowman.
Oh, it does. Look at that. Nice design choice.
Design element. Maybe I should make a couple more snowmen.
I know. That's so cool.
Okay.
So the last ruler, the line grid, I have it here. And actually, I guess I can show how we would use it. I shouldn't say I guess. I can show how we would use it on here. So once again, this is a ruler that has the little slit that you need to slide it through. So I'll show you guys how to use this here. I'll just do a little example here on this edge while Kristina gets hers set up. And we'll kind of show you, I mean, it works the same on both of them, but just an idea so that you understand how this ruler works, no matter what type of machine you're doing your quilting on. So I'm going to line up along this edge right here and just start right here at this seam. And I'm just going to sew up straight until I hit the top here. And the trick with making this ruler work really well is you have this top edge lined up right about where you want to, a quarter inch away from where you want to stop quilting. And then what I do is I just stitch across and stop with my needle down, and then I slide my ruler over. And I'm actually going to use an etched line right along this seam line to line everything up so I know that that's nice and straight, and I can just stitch straight down this time till I hit my seam here at the bottom, needle down, stitch over until I come to the edge of my ruler here. I actually should have slid this up. I didn't do that, but I'll do that this time. I'll slide it there, and then I will slide it over, line up along that seam again, and stitch up. So every time I move it over, I just slide over across that top, stop with my needle down, slide it over, line it up, and stitch again. And I end up with really nice, straight, even piano keys that are perfectly spaced. So
Very nice.
is that kind of still in a little riff from yours there?
See if I can add anything
Yeah.
to that. Okay, I'm bringing that needle up, sliding my foot over, and I've got my needle in the corner of my triangle, or my square. I know my shapes. And I've got so many layers, I can't get it under very well. I'm really watching this middle point.
Mhm.
So rather than starting on the edge and working
right.
across, I'm going to start at my middle to try to get that centered.
Well, you're doing it at an angle too, a little bit
Mhm.
different, because I was doing it straight on.
Yeah.
So this is good to see.
So I'm eyeballing that quarter inch,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to stitch up. And that actually turned out very nice.
Good job.
Now at this point, for this particular square, I didn't want to do my travel line.
Okay.
Because I didn't do stitch in the ditch, and I didn't want to have odd
Right.
little spurts there where I traveled. I could have done stitch in the ditch, but rather than that, I'm going to backtrack.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go back over that same line.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love that we're showing two different ways to use this ruler.
And then I'm just going to come across on the edge of my block,
very nice.
stop my needle from moving,
Mm-hmm.
slide the ruler over. And now I'm using my edge lines and
Perfect.
making sure that I am staying lined up.
Nice and straight.
And then I'm going to just continue up and down.
Oh.
And notice I kind of pause there at the top to make sure I get a good stitch right there on the end.
Mm-hmm.
Stitch across the bottom till I hit the other side. And you'll also notice that I like to have the ruler in position where I'm stitching on the straight,
Yes.
solid side.
Yeah.
And then the side that I stitch to travel is the one with the slot.
Right.
So now I can shift that over again, keeping it straight. And when you're not talking, you can actually get going a little bit faster on these.
Oh, I think it's funny you say that. I actually was having that thought. I'm like, rulers already take enough thought for me to use, and when I have to narrate what I'm doing, yes, it adds a little extra layer of difficulty. So
Let's do one more little slot feeling right here. Okay, and then I could just travel along the bottom of my block right here and then do the opposite side.
nice.
So, and if I wasn't concerned with having that center point lined up,
Right.
can't tell where.
Which you
I'm
did
out.
a good job of. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a miracle right there. But yeah, if I wasn't concerned with having that right in the middle, I could have started over on the left and
Right.
just did the whole square at one
Right.
time.
But easiest way to do that without having to do any math. You just start with the point you want to have hit,
Yep.
and then you switch.
And I love that we have places that we can travel.
Yes.
People think that with rulers, I can stitch like one line, I have to break my thread and start over again. Use those seams to travel or the edge of the quilt. And yeah, I like to do things as continuously as I can. So look for those paths that you can use. And you don't even have to do one ruler and finish that ruler.
Right.
You can switch rulers while your thread is still in place, except for when you're using the inside of a ruler that doesn't have a slot.
Yeah.
So.
But that, you know, if you just plan ahead for that, you can do all of your stitching with everything else and then go back and fill in with those.
Yep.
Or something. If you just a little bit of planning, right?
Yep.
Very cool. Very cool.
A few minutes of planning saves you a lot of time with the stitching.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's take a second and talk about the quilt that's behind us here.
Yes.
Such a gorgeous quilt. This is one we just received in the studio from Mary Beth Crapel, who lives in North Carolina. And it is another one of our beautiful vintage quilt tops that she got from Brenda Grells. This one is unique. You and I were reading the label before.
Should we show it?
Yeah, let's show the label. So the label is actually an extra block. And Mary Beth actually folded up the corner of the label here. And if we can, you guys can see here, there's actually a woman's name written here in pencil. And it says Jessie. And she put in her label here, which is so cute. She did it like it's the rest of the corner here. She said that this is a block that was obviously made by a group of women, and she listed all the names that are written in pencil on the back of this quilt. Isn't that awesome?
So all of these blocks on the front have a person's name that was written on the back. So you can't see it now that it's been quilted, but now it's documented here on the label. So that's fabulous.
It's so fabulous.
And Mary Beth is one of our field educators.
Yep.
So she travels around and teaches. So watch for her at your local retailer.
And we're pretty sure that this is a mix of pro stitcher and free motion, which is definitely Mary Beth's thing. She does such a beautiful job of quilting.
It's gorgeous.
It's a gorgeous quilt. A great tribute to the group of quilters that created this, for sure.
So that's fabulous.
Yeah.
So Kim, I think that we had fun today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully all of our viewers have learned some new tips and tricks. And we'd love to hear your comments. If there are things that you're wanting to learn about, let us know. If you're able to try out some of these things and you want to let us know how it went, again, comment, send us messages. We'd love it. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.